Based on the trailers for him, and knowing that this was another Jordan Peele horror production, I was expecting some pretty weird stuff from this movie. Yet, somehow, by the end, him managed to be even weirder than I thought it would be. Him ended up being something akin to football meets horror meets Highlander, where the idea of a quarterback competition was taken to its extremes, envisioning the battle for QB1 as a pseudo-supernatural gladiatorial bout to the death. The whole movie is drenched in on-the-nose satanic and demonic imagery, and a lot of the movie's running themes carried some pretty anti-football messages. The same kind of messaging you'd hear from the people that try and argue that the NFL is just a modern form of slavery. The whole thing was weird as fuck, some of which was intended and some of which is the result of them wildly missing the mark with this movie at the end. And I'll talk more about what made him such a weird movie after we get in a recap of the film. So spoilers on 3. Ready, set, hut, hut, hut. Him follows Cameron Cade, a young up-and-coming quarterback who's trying to break into the league. Cade, considered to be the next GOAT QB, grew up idolizing the GOAT of the previous generation, Isaiah White, who, despite blowing his femur 5 inches out of his knee on live television, went on to then win 8 championship rings with the Saviors. Days before the combine, while he's training, Cade gets attacked by a demonic goat man and suffers a traumatic brain injury. With his career left in the lurch, Cade's only way into the league is to train for a week with his idol Isaiah White, who's rumored to be gearing up for retirement. Cade jumps at the opportunity, pushing through his recent brain trauma and heading out to White's compound in the desert. After being forced to get butt naked so they can measure everything, training starts innocuous enough, but it soon takes a dark turn. During a drill, the stakes are raised, as every mistake Cade makes results in the only white guy on the field getting blasted in the face by a ball machine. Things only get darker from there, and Cade is pushed to his mental and physical limit, with Cade answering Isaiah's unrelenting challenges with promises that he's willing to sacrifice everything to be the GOAT. The training gets more and more intense, and things around the compound get weirder and weirder. Cade sees Isaiah drawing his own blood into bags. The trainer on site keeps poking Cade with some injections before then dropping not-so-subtle warnings to the young QB, and Cade keeps seeing dark visions of demonic attacks and how suffocating fame can be, which he can maybe chalk up to his recent brain injury. Over the next few days, Cade pukes blood, collapses, almost kills a defender with a helmet-to-helmet hit, and things nearly hit their breaking point when Isaiah's biggest fan, a woman akin to a cultist, attacks Cade in the sauna. He fights her off and chokes her out, but then in a bizarre scene, Isaiah comes in and stops the fan, before making out with the 55-year-old woman, and then chucking her into a wall and killing her.
Yo, what the fuck? That was so fucked up, you guys.
The next day, Isaiah's wife and some other harlots tempt Cade into taking a break from training to party. The next morning, this leads to Isaiah accusing Cade of banging his wife, before then blowjobbing the pistol he's been aiming at Cade. The next day is media training, and in an interview, Cade reveals that he actually tried to quit football against his dad's wishes, and when his dad died shortly after, he stuck to it for him. Cade's then taken to a party to meet the team's owner, and he's given a new diamond necklace, but somehow when he's partying later, he pukes up this diamond necklace. And at the end of the party, Cade sees the trainer's decapitated head, depriving him of the one person who was trying to save him. Cade then wakes up being infused with Isaiah's blood, but he breaks free and finds Isaiah. Cade tries to stab him, but Isaiah fights him off. Cade then confronts Isaiah about putting his blood in him, which he somehow chalks up as, quote, white people shit. It's at this point that it's revealed that Cade has been being injected with the GOAT's blood that came from the first great quarterback, and that's been passed down to each GOAT ever since. And now, Isaiah's been giving it to Cade. Isaiah then gets on some Highlander shit and says,
"There can be only one!"
And they must fight to the death to determine who's truly the GOAT. Of course, if Isaiah wanted to remain the GOAT, I can't see any reason why he's been willingly giving the blood to Cade, but I think questions like these are too much to ask of a movie like this. Under the watchful eye of some fans on a film tape above, Cade and Isaiah fight to the death, with Cade winning when he bashes Isaiah's face in with a football helmet. Cade then exits through the tunnel out onto a field within a coliseum to sign a contract with his favorite team, the Saviors. A contract likened to a deal with the devil, subtly confirmed by the presence of satanic mascots and the team's owners being dressed like demonic cultists. When Cade is hesitant to sign his life away for everything he's ever wanted, the white team owner says, "Listen up, boy. Sign the contract or I'll kill your family." So in true Highlander fashion, Cade takes up a sword and tries to kill everybody. Isaiah's wife gets up to kill him, but she immediately trips and stabs herself in the neck with her knife. Cade then slaughters everyone, cutting people's throats, chucking a longsword into a guy's back, and beheading the owner. And Cade's manager gets dragged into the middle of a satanic ritual circle by some unseen force before he explodes. Cade then walks off, somehow triumphant even though he got nothing he wanted. The end. Well, I wasn't joking about how weird it got by the end. But what might have gotten lost in my recap is how Him's gory, spastic, oddly campy final scene just absolutely buried any kind of messaging the movie was building toward. Him is the kind of movie that needs to really land one final strong punch to bring its messaging and its themes home. To tie up all of those loose ends that were being dragged through the story into a nice bow they could put on the film and deliver some grander message. And they just couldn't pull it off. They didn't even really get close, for that matter. Him's main theme was one of sacrifice. No guts, no glory. You have to be willing to do, give up, or endure anything to achieve your dreams. In Isaiah's case, he inverted the common phrase God, family, football, putting football ahead of everything. Cade, in the end, didn't put football ahead of everything, and he chose to walk away from everything he ever wanted. I guess. I mean, honestly, it's hard to tell what the fuck they were going for after that final scene. Even what I think they were going for doesn't make any sense. Ostensibly, Cade picks his family over football after they were threatened. But they literally aren't threatened until 4 seconds before Cade makes his decision. And if family really was the priority, then why would Cade go against his dead father's wishes? Wouldn't he sacrifice himself to provide everything for his family? So then, Cade doesn't put football first, so does Cade put God above everything? And in his mind, God wants Cade to slaughter these people and become some kind of football messiah who doesn't play football? This is what I mean. The final scene just muddies the waters, and I highly doubt the creators even know what they were trying to do by the end. Another theme related to sacrifice was that to be the best, you have to beat the best. And Him took this idea literally, with Cade and Isaiah meeting at the end in a Highlander-esque battle.
There can be only one.
I don't mind this reimagining of a heated quarterback battle or liken it to gladiatorial combat, but again, it just doesn't really make any sense. If Isaiah wanted to stay the GOAT, then why is he feeding the supernatural goat's blood into his competitor? And from a storytelling perspective, I really don't get the decision to do it this way. The story would have been better off with Isaiah keeping his edge over Cade and making Cade prove that he was better without the blood, and having Cade overcome the current GOAT through nothing but his own ability and hard work would have made way more sense. To show that good values and work ethic can overcome the demonic, the evil that takes shortcuts to power. So as if muddying the waters with the final scene wasn't enough, literally muddying the main character's blood and abilities made this story much worse than it could have been. So Him's main themes got completely blown up at the end, some of the smaller themes never went any further than simply being introduced, and some just made no sense at all. For example, early in the movie, Isaiah talks about how Native Americans used to be the best at football, and now they're just mascots. At the end, during their pitched battle, Cade asks Isaiah if he knows what the opposite of a savior is. Isaiah says a killer, but Cade says no, a mascot.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And then he kills Isaiah. I would love to hear anyone who was involved with this movie come out and try to explain that one. There was plenty of other messaging in this movie, but pretty much all of the rest of it was taking aim at football, or the NFL, or white people. Some of those themes came in the form of likening sports contracts to a deal with the devil, casting the fandom as rabid, religiously devoted cultists, portraying athletes as mere goods bought and sold by owners, showing outsiders as trying to control athletes' lives, and saying that athletes risk their bodies and their lives just to live up to the expectations of others. And, of course, in general, football is portrayed as just about the most violent thing ever created by man, which is ironic given how much the NFL has pussified the game in recent years, and the NFL even encourages players to wear these. But getting back to the other ideas Him put forward about athletes, just like those who want to argue that the NFL is some form of slavery, they conveniently miss two key components that tip the scales back in the other direction: free will and the millions of dollars professional ball players make. Two itty-bitty downsides about slavery are you're not getting paid for your work and you're not a free person. Neither apply to being a millionaire athlete in the 21st century. And the issue with Him is the points it tries to make in the same vein as the slavery argument also don't hold any water. Athletes are not goods. They're contract workers paid to do a job they're free to leave at any time. And you're not going to convince anyone who has a normal job that signing a professional sports contract is akin to signing a deal with the devil. So basically, Him swung and missed on every idea or theme or message it tried to get across. And then, of course, there were things like Isaiah saying that white people made football violent as a way to oppress the Native Americans, and that black quarterbacks have it so hard, and other such nonsense, blah blah blah. Then there were the things in this movie that were just flat out weird. We already talked about Isaiah making out with a cult-like fan before murdering her, and him blowjobbing a Glock 9. But that wasn't all of it. There was also a scene where Isaiah's wife gave Cade a crystal to put up his butt, and at one point Isaiah was just yelling, "I am football." It was just a weird movie with an especially hard faceplant at the end that undid everything it had been working toward. And who could forget the whole thing was draped in the most obvious, on-the-nose satanic and demonic imagery you could think of. I mean, the two team names we see were the Saviors and the Masons. There was not a lick of subtlety. I will say that the acting was solid. Marlon Wayne's character was pretty good at being pretty weird. And the eerie, tilted, discomforting cinematography and effects might be off-putting for some, but I thought they fit the movie well. And more so than anything else, I actually kinda like some of the underlying ideas this movie had. Like taking the idea of a QB competition into the Coliseum for a fight to the death. And the movie's main theme of sacrifice would have worked really well in a movie like this if they didn't make as many strange decisions as they did with Him. In the end, and specifically at the end, anything this movie had going for it was buried under a mountain of weirdness and messages that fell flat. As of this writing, Him is currently getting a 57% from fans on Rotten Tomatoes and a 4.7 from viewers on Metacritic, both of which I feel are pretty generous. The movie came in slightly lower than expectations at the box office its first weekend, pulling in just $13.5 million. But contrary to almost every other movie we've reviewed on this channel for the last 3 years, this one had a pretty reasonable budget. Him only cost $27 million to make, so even with a poor showing and it looking dead in the water, Him won't be lighting a pallet of cash on fire like so many other movies do. As for me, Him definitely gets a Hatewatch label, and I wouldn't recommend spending your time on it, unless you're in the mood to just see some weird shit. Him took some decent ideas, snapped the ball, ran a draw that turned into a flea flicker that turned into a triple option reverse where they got tackled for a 15-yard loss and fumbled the ball. In non-sports terms, they did just about all they could to fuck up any decent ideas they had. They introduced a whole lineup of themes and messages, and not one of them ended up being sound, relevant, or coherent. Any creepy or eerie feeling the movie cultivated was totally washed out by all the blood the movie's final, campy scene produced. And the movie's complete lack of subtlety with its demonic, satanic imagery leaves little to the viewer's imagination. Him just sucked. Did you give Him a shot? Does it sound even weirder than you thought it would be? Do you think the creators will come out and say Him is some treatise on concussions and TBIs to deflect from how bad this movie was? Let me know in the comments below. And remember to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to Hatewatchers for reviews of other current shows and movies. Thank you for speculating if the creators suffered some real TBI before making this movie with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.